everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Tea with Teaa podcast. Listen, I really hope that you have been enjoying this season on transitions because I know I've been having a blast. Listen, if you have not already, please like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications, whatever you need to do to not miss an episode, y'all. So this season we are talking about transitions, y'all. A lot of transitioning has been happening, right? And today we're going to be talking about transitioning from full-time employment. Yep, that's the T. If you don't know, T stands for transformation, encouragement, and application. Today's T is going to be so good because I'm not by myself and I'm super stoked to introduce y'all. Welcome to the set. Welcome to the Tea with Teaa podcast. My buddy, my friend, TJ. What's up, TJ? Okay, let's clap. Not your own clap. That's hilarious. What's up, TJ?
What's up, Teaa?
You good?
I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
glad to be here.
I'm
Yeah.
happy that you're here. Tell the
I'm
people a
glad
little
to
bit
be
about
here.
yourself.
Well, yes, I go by TJ, but my name is Tyrone E. Turner Jr. I'm from Lawton. I was born in Ardmore, but we moved from there when I was like 3 or 4.
Okay.
And yeah, I lived in Lawton I was raised in Lawton and came to the city.
Okay.
So I'm a professional drummer.
Okay. But
Used to be an athlete, but I transitioned
Okay, yeah.
from being an athlete to now playing drums. I've been blessed to play for different artists and
Yeah.
as well as being an artist myself.
Yeah,
So,
for sure you
that's
are.
a little bit about me.
Hey, come on. While we're here, let's go ahead and plug the new single. Tell everybody about the new single.
So I just dropped my new single called Fresh Start.
Mm-hmm.
It just dropped September 20th of
Yeah.
this year,
Yes.
which at the time was So oh God. So yeah, that was it just dropped September 20th of this year. My new single, Fresh Start. People have been listening, sharing,
Yeah.
liking. Some of the comments has been amazing. And so if you are watching right now, you haven't heard it yet, man, y'all go download it. It's on all digital platforms.
Yes.
Apple Music, Spotify, whatever
Yeah.
you listen to is there. And let me know what you think. So yeah.
That's what's up. I love that. You all, that little laughter moment we just had because something happened in studio. So we saw it, we heard it and laughed. So that's what that little moment was.
Yep.
Especially if you're listening on Spotify and Apple. You might be like, wait,
Mhm.
what's going on? YouTubers are going to get it. But
Yeah.
anyway, cool. So we are talking about today transitioning from full-time employment, which we both have some experience with.
Yes.
And so today I just we have such amazing conversations. And I'm like, let's bring some of that to the camera. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so let's talk about it. Like, I know for me, I've transitioned from full-time employment literally like at the cusp of a pandemic. I remember when did the pandemic start? 21? Something like that. Anyway, I remember the December before that particular year, the Lord began ministering to me about leaving the place of employment where I had been for the last 6 years. And I was like, no, say what now? You want me to do what now? And I heard what I heard, but I sat on it. And then we go into the new year and things begin to close down and COVID, if you will, begin to expand in such a way where we knew, wait, we're in the middle of something that, at least for our lifetime, is different, something we've never been a part of. So I'm like, amazing. God ain't caring about me leaving this job. He's about to heal the world.
Yeah.
And so he's not thinking about me. He's like, nope, still, I want you to leave. He said,
thought you was safe.
like, I'm like, all right, bet he ain't worried about me. That's not how that happened. And he said this to me. I heard it very clearly. He said, the grace for this place has lifted for you. And what I think is really important is he wasn't saying the grace for that place had lifted. It's an amazing place, still is, all the things. But he said, Teaa, the grace for this place has lifted for you. And I think it's important for us to know, like, hey, when the grace that God has given you to do a thing, to be in a thing, to be a part of a thing, when that has lifted, you got to know, as people would say, when to hold them and when to fold them. You got to know when it's time to go, you know? So that was kind of the beginning of the journey. There's much more. We'll get into it. But when was a time in your life where you transitioned, like in this case, from full-time employment?
I've had many actually.
Okay.
It's not the first time, but particularly it was let's see. I used to be a maintenance tech.
Okay.
A couple years ago, and mine was a little different. I didn't really hear God necessarily tell me it's time to go. he was just like, if you want to take this step, then do it. It's up to
Okay.
you. And so
Okay.
there was a little
You had a
different.
choice.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I never really been through, usually my transitions, God will be like, no, it's time.
Okay.
But now it was like, no, this is on you.
Okay. So it's different.
So yeah, it was different. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was a maintenance tech for 2.5 years. Um, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like it.
Yes, come on. We
I
keep it
didn't
real and raw
I
on Tea
didn't
with
like
Tia.
it. I didn't
Yeah.
like it, man.
Mm-hmm.
We had to deal with evictions
Mm-hmm.
and on-call
Mm.
phone. If somebody call you at 5 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta get up and go. Or
Uh,
2 in the morning, you gotta get up and go.
yeah.
In the wintertime, you were dealing with freeze ice storms or
Mm-hmm.
freezing, so that means pipes was busting everywhere in
Mm-hmm.
apartments, so you're out until 2 or 3 in the morning
Mm-hmm.
cleaning up, and you got to wait for the carpet people to get there and to replace carpet,
Yeah.
and just it was just a lot,
A
but
lot.
it
Yeah.
did grow me and
Mm-hmm.
mature me,
Mm.
um to be on time, to be
Mm-hmm.
responsible, even to keep going when you don't want to be somewhere.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I didn't like it, but I came to a point to where I knew music is what I wanted to do full time.
Okay.
And so, um, long story short, some people started getting fired and leaving my job because it was
Okay.
overwhelming for them.
Okay.
And I just remember I kept praying about it, kind of like bugged God about it.
Yeah.
And God was just like, okay, you can either stay here, thug it out,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you can step out on faith and I'll
Mm-hmm.
provide.
Mm-hmm.
And I did it. It was very scary.
Mm.
But literally it was so on time because my main boss that quit, she literally quit like maybe a couple days before I did.
Mm-hmm.
And so literally it set up, I got the apartment before she left for
Okay.
me to move because I used to live on the
Okay.
property where I worked.
Yeah, for sure.
And so as she was leaving, like a door opened for me because I
Okay.
told her what was going on, what I'm gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I got the apartment. I moved in, and it was definitely a huge faith journey after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. Like, there's so many nuggets
I
in
know,
what
I
you
already know, I
said.
already
I'm
know, I
just
already
like,
know.
oh
Let's just go ahead and start. Let's
I'm
just go
just like,
ahead and
where do we
start.
dive in? Like so many really valuable lessons. I think one of the first things that you said that I want to hit on is that in this particular transition, one, it looks different than your others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important because sometimes we're looking for God to show up the same way He's always shown up. And He doesn't always show up the same way. So we have to be keen and alert and aware,
Mm-hmm.
and in tune to Him. And so that thought stood out to me that this transition looked different than the other transitions. But then something else is that you had a choice. And I think sometimes maybe we see God in such a light where He forces us or He makes us, but that's not the case. Like I think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. If you don't know that this particular part of the story, Jesus is getting ready to be crucified. He's
Mm-hmm.
on the journey, on the path to that. But at this moment, he's in this garden, he's crying out to God. The Bible says he's crying tears of blood. And he's saying, God, listen, and I'm paraphrasing, yo, if I ain't gotta do it, I ain't gotta do it. I really
Right.
don't want to do it. But
Yeah.
then he says, but not my will, your will. He made
Mm-hmm.
a choice. And man, look how we've benefited, right, from
Mm-hmm.
that choice. And so oftentimes, even when it comes to transitioning, we have a choice. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? We have
Mm-hmm.
a choice to make a decision. And at the end of the day, I love something that my therapist says to me. She says, you have to be at peace with the decision that you make. And not just worldly peace, but God's peace. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
would you agree
Mm-hmm.
with that? Like, what's your thoughts there?
I do. To talk about the peace part,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say what I experienced at my maintenance job. I believe God was teaching me how to manage peace.
Okay. Okay. Whoa.
And
Wait, break
so
that down. Hold on. He was teaching you how to manage peace.
yes,
Come on.
because me being a drummer,
Mm-hmm.
God has given me a great gift.
Yeah, because he's an
Um,
amazing drummer, y'all. Let me look at
God,
this camera if you're on YouTube. The boy is cold, okay?
man,
Now
he's
he my
given
drummer,
me.
so don't you.
I'm weak.
No, I'm just playing. I'm just
I mean, I am. I just,
Yeah.
but God has given me a great gift,
Yeah.
humbly, and so
Mm-hmm.
my struggle was I was in a place that didn't bring me the same amount of peace as drums did,
Mm.
and so what the devil or the enemy would try to do, would try to send people my way and say, hey, you're so much bigger than this. Why are you
Yeah.
here?
Wow.
Why are you here at this maintenance job?
Yeah.
You over here being a maintenance tech,
Yeah.
and you one of the best drummers in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
So why are you at this job?
Yeah.
And so God had to teach me like to manage peace and to manage like knowing I'm right where I need to be. And so, because sometimes, like, even during your transition, you will be tested to see if you can stay where you are before
Yeah.
the time
Yeah.
is up.
Yeah.
And if you can, if you're tuned in to the Holy Spirit, He will lead you. But
Yes.
there is a thing called don't leave too early and don't leave too
Wow.
soon. There's a
So good.
there's a right time and a wrong time.
It's so good, TJ. Like, literally what comes to my mind, I remember the moment. I can see myself in the space I was standing when it happened. The Lord, while He told me that it was time to go, it wasn't yet. It was a year journey. He told me this before. Before a year before it actually happened, and we went through a year of transitioning, myself and the team that I was a part of. Because here's another thing: God is not going to just make sure you're good, but also the place you're leaving is good. But nonetheless, going back to what you just said about leaving too early or too soon, I remember I was standing in the restroom at that place of employment, and I wasn't disgruntled or anything like that. But it had been a few months since I heard the voice of the Lord and even began discussing it with leadership. So if I'm honest, I was getting a little antsy. And the Lord reminded me of what my posture needed to be. And then He said this to me. It was life-changing. That's actually
No, that's crazy.
That's one of your singles. But it was life-changing. He said this. He said, Tia, you cannot leave one season dishonorably and go into the next season honorably. How you handle this moment matters. And I was reminded of David, how David was anointed but then sent back to herd the sheep.
That's crazy.
But that season was to help him, to grow him, to groom him. Go ahead.
No, that's crazy you said that, because I literally thought about that. On the way here, God is my witness. I'm not lying.
God, is He lying? No, I'm just playing. I'm playing.
But the thought that came to me was what you said, but also I believe David was in transition as well, as far as like to become king, and he had to go back and tend the sheep. But then it was like a particular moment in the word where I think it was it Saul? I think the Philistines, he was like, who's gonna fight the Philistines with me, or who's gonna, I'm paraphrasing
Come on,
because I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah,
but
you're good.
Y'all ain't about to get me.
No, yeah,
but
we're all growing. We're all growing in the word.
But he was just saying, like, who's gonna fight these Philistines?
Yeah.
Because basically, if you read it closely, Saul was scared. So he said, who's gonna help me? Who's gonna? And so he was going through these different men. He got to David, and he was like, surely you're just a boy. You can't handle this. But David responds, and it was like a light bulb, or my eyes got big. I was like, oh my God, this is for me in that particular season. David said, well, I already been tending the sheep. Already been fighting the lions and the bears and everything. So basically, he was saying what God has prepared for me was already in secret.
Yes.
It just didn't come public yet.
Yeah.
And so that was just teaching me how to like I said, just manage the peace of God, knowing that even in your transition, God has prepared you for your next.
Yep, for
like you were
sure.
saying, leaving honorably and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just that people may not see it. And
Yeah.
so that's where the attack comes, is like they may not see what God is doing through you
For
and,
sure.
and in you through
Yeah.
that season. And so, yeah, I just had to say that.
No, this is good, because not only may they not see it, but they may see it and not agree. And that was something that I was coming up against, because it was so like almost out of like, like in the middle of a pandemic, God is telling you to leave your job that you love. Oh wow, here we go. Thank you, Holy Spirit. The very job that you prayed for. Like, even how I got that job, you know what I'm saying? And when I say prayed for it, I didn't pray for that specific job, but it was in another moment of transition. I had moved back from Maryland. I was working for a tech company, but got to be remote from Oklahoma for 7 years, where we lost the contract, our company.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't have a job for about 4 months. And at the time I was, married. And while it was going fine regarding my marriage, there was a time where my ex was like, hey, like, you think you should start working? Because I knew the Lord had told me to be still and not to work. So here we are again. That sounds crazy. Like, girl, you better go get a job. And
That's
I
wow.
actually enjoy working. So it didn't even seem normal for myself, right? Nonetheless, I remember I was praying to the Lord because we had a heated conversation, if you will. And I said, Lord, I need a job that is fun, that allows for family time, that pays well, and that allows me to further advance the kingdom of God. And like a month later, I get a call from this particular, I was on staff at a church for 6 years. I get a call from this particular church. And even in that call, they said, hey, you're only going to be temporary, but you are the one that we were to call. You're the one for this position, but we want to tell you up front, it's only going to be 3 months. So here I am kind of at a crossroads. I'm like, okay, God, now I pray for a job, but I need it longer than 3 months. He said, take it. And that yes to 3 months opened up the door for 6 years. This is so good.
Wow.
So then at the end of the 6 years, when the Lord said, okay, now it's time to transition from here, and he didn't use that language, but when he said it's time to go, the grace for this place has lifted for you. I'm like, God, in the middle of a pandemic, but he reminded me of the time that he had provided before. And so for me, what it began doing was building another level of trust for God, building another level of dependency. Because it's like we can say he's our source, but sometimes you got to prove it. My dad would say that to me sometimes. He would say, Teaa, actually the fun part of being a believer is when it's time to believe, which is not always in the most for real fun times.
Jesus, man.
And I'm like, well, God, you are my source, but also I was getting a check every 2 weeks. I have amazing insurance, all the things. He said, you got to trust me. And some of my friends and some of my family, they loved me and supported me, but also thought I was crazy. Like, you about to do what?
Wait.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Dive
So can
in.
you go back to the, what did you say? I'm going to paraphrase. It was something about how people didn't really agree with what you were doing.
Yeah, they saw the movement, but they didn't agree with the movement. It looks crazy to them. It looks silly. And if I'm honest, it did look crazy and silly, but I knew what God said. But yeah, they were like, you doing what? Like, that
was
doesn't
the
make
biggest
sense.
I'm sorry.
No, good. You're good.
That was the biggest test that I think God taught me. And something, when you were talking, this came to mind. I think in those seasons, God teaches how to agree with him and to block out the disagreement of people.
Oh my gosh, TJ, say that again. That's so good.
I think the season where God wants us to agree with him, he blocks out people that has a disagreement.
Wow. Because agreement matters.
Yes. And so I didn't know I didn't realize that till now. So this is how our conversations is
in real life. In real life.
We'll talk, and so it just revelation starts going. But wow.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. Gotta sit with it.
Let's take a breathing moment.
Gotta sit with it.
Yeah, I didn't know that was teaching me, man, to agree with God. Because that can be lonely.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially if it's family, friends, people who you love, whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it is. That can be hard when loved ones disagree or they cannot see what God is trying to do within you, but only you know.
Yeah.
That can be hard because you can feel like you're isolated.
Yeah.
You can feel like, man, nobody understands.
For sure.
Me. If you don't be careful, that's where the devil can come in and your mind can start playing tricks on you. Like, oh man, nobody understands me. Nobody gets it. But if your faith is strong, if you stay consistent with God, I believe he will show you. If you stay in agreement with me, if you start to agree
for sure
and truly believe it,
for sure,
that you will come out on the other side. And I believe this is why we can have conversation now.
Yeah.
Because I believe we passed the test of agreeing with God.
Yeah. Wow.
And blocking out disagreement with people.
That's so good, TJ. You said something that I want to hit on. You said if our faith is strong. And I think another component is because someone may be saying, man, I don't know if I have strong faith. And so I think, whatever the degree of strength, if you will, your faith is one thing. But I also think it's really awesome if your faith is rooted. Like, where's your faith rooted? right? It may not be the strongest, and I'm using that term very loosely because I don't mean that to be demeaning. But maybe it's the faith of a mustard seed, but maybe you have the faith of Noah building an ark. You ain't never even heard or seen rain, but you know what God said. But your faith is rooted in God, right? The Bible tells us, I think it's in Romans, that Moses, it was either Moses or Abraham, was persuaded, that he was fully persuaded that what God said is what it is what it was, if you will, you know. And so I love that our, you know, it's the type of faith that we have, but also that our faith is rooted. But then you said about the agreement that if we believe, and for me that's really important, because in Mark, I think it's 9:29, it says all things are possible to him who believe. Not all things are possible to him who read for 8 hours a day. Not all things are possible to those who wake up before the crack of dawn praying. Not all things are possible, you know, even to the one who obeys. Like, come on, y'all, let's really take the word at face value in this moment. And all of those things are amazing. I'm not knocking any of that. I'm a part of the crew, right? But it says, if you believe, sometimes you cannot be getting up and praying, but you are believing. Your actions are showing that you are in agreement, that you are in alignment, that you believe what God said. And to me, that's really the mark of success, right? People would say, man, you're going to leave this successful job. You're going to leave this successful part of ministry and da-da-da-da-da. And yeah, while that was true, also, what is success is obeying. Success is me doing what God told me to do, even if you don't get it. Because here's the deal. We may want people to understand, TJ. I call him T.E. Turner Jr., but here we go. That's public now. Come on, the great Dr. Reverend T.E. Turner. No, but
God.
TJ, I'm sorry, it's out there now. But we may want people to agree. We may want people to see. We may want them to understand. But sometimes they don't. But we still, even in spite of, like, if we're looking for agreement from people who didn't get the same word we got, we may never continue to walk in agreement with God. And so you have to decide, what's my barometer? What's my success? Who's my audience, in a way, if you will? And if that's God, you got to mourn and grieve the fact that other people didn't get it. They don't see it. They don't understand, and keep moving. You got to keep going.
There's so much. Hold on.
Yeah, let's
Golly.
pause.
Wait,
Let's pause.
I just got like 10 things what you
Say
just said.
them all. Say them all. Excuse me.
Wow. Can you repeat? What was the last part? Because I'm trying to, I don't know.
Lord, what did you say?
I don't even know. Like,
basically, you know, that we have to grieve. Sometimes we want others.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Grieving relationships in transition is real. This is a vulnerable topic.
Okay, here we go.
So I guess we just gonna go. I think it's not only because you want them to agree, but the people who you love, you want them to see the progress.
Yeah.
You want them to see the maturity.
Yeah.
You want them to see, I'm not the same T.E. Turner Jr.
Yeah.
I'm not the same TJ
Yeah.
that I was
Yeah.
5 years ago or 2 years ago. And God is using this job to do that.
Yeah.
To change me.
Yeah.
And so I think that can hurt worse, because it's just like, man, I want y'all to see it. I want y'all to see what God is doing. But it's just like, it's almost like God is like, I know we use this word used kind of loosely, but I think he has to kind of hide us for a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
To give us time to grow, to give us time to mature. And so grieving relationships and transition is also a thing too. And somebody that may be hearing this, if some friendships have to walk away because of your transition, just know it's okay.
Yeah.
Because it is a real thing.
Yes.
And some may not walk away, but there may be some distance.
Yeah.
To where the relationship may not be as the same, but y'all still talk, but there may be a grievance of, dang, we're not really the same.
Yeah.
Because of this transition.
Yeah.
And that's okay though, because the beautiful side of it is God does bring new people.
Yes.
In your life. And just know that, to be honest, some of those relationships can be rekindled.
Yes.
It's just sometimes that you have to wait until the transition is over.
Yeah.
To rekindle those things.
Yeah.
And it may happen during it, but Yeah, I just wanted to say because you said so much, so I'm gonna let you talk because I was just
No,
like,
this is
woo,
no.
I was just like, what
We
in
are
the
both
world?
talking.
Yeah.
That's really good though. You said that, sometimes those relationships or friendships, whatever they may be, can be rekindled, but
hmm
it may need to come after the transition or sometimes even
hmm
during, because here's the truth of the matter, they're in transition too, if they choose it. Right. And it may not be the same transition you're in, but there is some form of transition because we're really all in transition all the
hmm
time.
hmm
Because you could use another word, you could use growth or development, right? And so, in some shape, form, or fashion, in some area of our life, again, should we choose it, that is happening. And so, sometimes, even though it may hurt, even though it may seem foreign, even though it may go against our natural inclination, it's wise and important for us to step back,
hmm
because I think in doing so, a lot of times, if God allows that to be brought back together, it'll be so much more beautiful
hmm
than it would have been had we forced something that was meant in a season to be separate. And
Yeah.
that's not always people. Sometimes you got to separate from a certain type of thinking. You got to separate from
hmm
actions. You got to
hmm
separate from certain type of environments. Like
hmm
whatever that thing is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. My
Yeah.
my the
I'm so
you
sorry.
said
Excuse me.
thinking. No, you're fine. You said thinking. My I guess emotions or thoughts or something that I had to work on or separate from was expectations
Mm,
of people.
mm,
And so going back to the agreement or disagreement thing with what people can't see or what you want them to see, it's
yeah.
also a line of what they want you to do
Yeah.
while you're in transition or what they think you should
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. It's
And
real.
so you expect them to understand or have that expectation of like, well, why are you not able to see where God is taking me?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to deal with the expectations of sometimes in your transition, people will put a expectations on you to
Mm-hmm.
make a move that will make them happy.
Yeah.
And that can be hurtful too.
Yep, it can. And it could cause you to come out of agreement again with
hmm
God. And even thinking about that, like a thought that just came to my mind is that can be tricky as well. The whole component of, I think I'm gonna say what's in my mind, like a
hmm
mentor or a pastor who,
hmm
when I say a pastor, not just maybe the pastor of your church, but someone who is pastoring you, which that
hmm
could be the same person, but they could be thinking or saying something totally different. And man, for me, that was an area where I was like, oh gosh. Because I'm like, Lord, I know what you said, but I value this person, their wisdom, like all the things. So it's kind of like, okay, what do I do?
hmm
And for me, those are some of the moments that brought tears at night when no one else knew. Because I felt like, man, I'm going to be going against my leader. I'm going to be going
hmm
against the very person that God sent to be a mentor to me, or that he
mm
sent me to say, hey, can you help walk me through things such as transitions?
hmm
And now here we are in
hmm
one, and I'm seemingly disobeying. I just did air quotes if you're listening. You know what I mean? And things of that nature. And so for me, that was something that at a point was difficult, but I was like, okay, God, I know what you said. And I remember, and not just what you said early on, but what he was saying in the moments. God literally, down to the point, he would tell me, he would give me download information, more answers, and more more of the plan, and I would be ready to go run and tell the people who I needed to go run and tell.
hmm
He would say, not yet. They're not ready for that. And that was wild to me, because I'm like, but these people are way more experienced. They're more
Yeah.
all these things, right? I want to be careful. And it wasn't a negative thing that God was saying, because again, God he wasn't telling me some of these things to help teach them. He was also teaching me to
Yeah.
listen, to obey, to not rush, to be slow to speak, all the
hmm
things, right? And I remember it was at the end of the journey. I think it was like 2 weeks before it was going to be my last day. And I was meeting with the group of people who I had been on a journey with. And one of them said, Teaa, he said, I'm so proud of you. He said, I've transitioned 5 times from such and such type of places. He said, and it's never been the way you did it. He said they
Wow.
weren't bad, but it
hmm
never looked like this. He said, you don't know this, but the way you modeled your transition is going to help us model how to handle people in transition. My mind was shook. And let me tell you why my mind was shook. Because in essence, what he was saying was, even though in the beginning we wanted more, you did it the way you should have. But what I was hearing was, Teaa, you obey God. Because there were times I wanted to say, oh, I heard this, or I know this now, or this can be this date or weekend. And the Lord said, nope, not yet. And it wasn't until it was time until the Lord said, now today I want you to go in the meeting and say this. Now today I want you. So when he said that, it brought tears to my eyes because of some of what he said, but because of internally what it meant to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were nights, like I said, when I was like, God, I gotta say this now. And he's like, no, you don't. And so he was saying, the way you did this was the way you should have done it. And it just really, really, really blessed me. And so I want to encourage someone who may be in a transition. I can already tell we're coming back for a part 2, I'm going to say this, and TJ, if you would like to close us out with something, you can. But I just want to say to someone who is in transition, listen, I know that it may be scary. I know that it may be foreign to you. I know that it may seemingly be impossible. And you may be like, Lord, surely you didn't. But if you know with the counsel of wise counsel and wisdom of wise counsel and with the relationship that you and God have, if you know that he said it, obey. And here's the deal. Even if in faith you miss it, there's still grace for that.
Yeah.
I need you to hear that. I'm definitely not saying just go out and be frivolous and start leaving jobs and leaving relationships and whatever, just start abruptly leaving stuff. That's not what I'm saying. But if you heard the voice of the Lord, even if you think you heard it, what his voice sounds like to you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not a hearing, but it's this notion in your belly. Maybe he spoke to you through a billboard. I don't know, y'all. I want to be careful because I don't want y'all to be like, Teaa said go. I'm going to quit my job tomorrow.
Don't
That's
do
not
that.
what I'm saying. Do not do that. Be wise, be responsible. But if I'm speaking to you, and you just have to obey and trust that the very questions that you are saying, God, I can't because of this, he's already made provision for that. So you got to obey. TJ, close us out for this part 1. We're coming back with part 2.
I don't know what to say. All I'm thinking about, you say yes you do.
I'm like, sorry, I didn't know you heard. I'm like, yes you do.
All I can think about on the last part you were talking about, I thought about multiple things, but one of the things that was standing out in my mind, well, my spirit, when what I was feeling is, I don't want to make it seem like I'm singling out people that only obeyed God during the transition, but this is what I felt for the people that have obeyed God. It is okay during your transition. It is okay to say that I obey God.
Yeah.
It is okay to lean into that and say, I'm hurting, but I know I hurt God.
Yeah.
I am on the verge of depression because of transition, but I obey God.
That's so real.
I am grieving relationships or my leaders or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a sensitive conversation. But whatever, or my leaders or my boss, they didn't understand, my friends. But it is okay to pat yourself on the back.
Yeah.
Give yourself grace and mercy and allow yourself to say, but I obey God.
But I obey God.
And it's okay. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Y'all, on that note,
that's it.
We're wrapping this episode up. I obey God.
Yeah.
It's okay to pat yourself on the back.
Yep.
Y'all, come on back for part 2. For us, it's getting ready to be in about 2 minutes. For you to be in 2 weeks. But we will see you on the next episode of the Tea with Teaa podcast. TJ, thank you for being here.
Yeah, this is blessing me.
Yeah, I love you, man. I really value, honor, and appreciate you. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Same here.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, y'all. Join us on episode or part 2 of transitioning through full-time employment. Peace.